Windows, and we are live. Welcome everyone to our second free speech political talk in 2 weeks' time. Well, the last time we were focusing a little bit more on free speech. This time we're going to focus a little bit more on politics. And for those of you who are interested in it, today we had the election of the city councils in the Netherlands, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm sorry, most people aren't from the Netherlands and they don't give a damn. Well, and in all fairness, I don't give a damn about that either.
Local politics is slightly different anyway.
Yeah, unfortunately in the Netherlands, it seems not to be. I mean, local politics is still important for the local people, yet the national parties are part of the local politics, and somehow nearly all of the talks go about what happens nationally.
It's the same. It's the same here too. But in the end, the results don't have the international repercussion.
No,
national elections do.
Yeah,
what kind of meant.
But it's kind of useless anyway. So we're not going to talk about the Dutch elections. Hi there, Rin. We're going to talk about politicians in general. We're going to talk about politics in general. We're going to readdress free speech, and all of this set to a background of Count Dankula being told that he's going to go to jail for making an offensive joke.
Hello, Modwain. By the way, what happened to Carlos? Is Carlos not able to?
I have no idea. I did send him a Twitter invite, and I mean, feel free to send him one too. I hope he can make it. But in all fairness, normally I start the pre-hangout stuff usually like an hour at least before, but I came home 20 minutes ago, so
yeah, like I did wonder if you remember to send Carlos a hangout link, or if you I would go and try to reach out to him on Twitter and see if he's able to make it.
Is he back online then?
Well, I think he is.
Because the last I heard from him was that
that's almost a week ago.
Over a week ago.
Yeah, he didn't have internet, but that was over a week ago. I hope he has internet now. But yeah, there is that. And Marcel Taylor, name me one honest politician, I dare you. Okay. In all fairness, I forgot the name of the guy, but he's the leader of the Christian Union of the Netherlands. Now,
I can make a bad joke about dead politicians.
Yeah, but they're not honest either. They're just dead.
They are dead, yeah, but they don't lie anymore.
Yeah, but not lying is not what makes you honest. Telling the truth is what makes you honest.
Stop being literal, mate. It was a bad joke.
It's a very bad joke. Shame on you. Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Marcel, I forgot the name of the Dutch Christian Union politician, but I respect him because he at least seems to be honest. Elicia's link is dead. Can I retweet it? John, can you retweet the link to Elicia, because Twitter doesn't allow me to send these links anymore. I'll give it another try though. What the hell?
Even in a message?
Yeah. Twitter is a terrible, terrible mistress. Here we go.
Yeah, I agree about Twitter.
My keyboard suddenly stopped working. Sorry, Rin.
Yeah, I agree with you about Twitter, Modwain. Did you hear about Tree of Logic? She got her Twitter permanently suspended by calling David Duke a racist grandpa, and it was the word grandpa that got her suspended. She got
it was a grandpa, so we're no longer allowed to call people grandpa. For fuck's sake.
Yeah, it was the word grandpa that got her suspended permanently suspended because of ageism. You know.
What a motherfucking load. I'm sorry, this is stupid. Yeah, I like Tree of Logic too. This is weird. I mean, that she called him a racist, I could have somewhat understand that Twitter fell on this, because not that I disagree with Tree of Logic on this, But hey, if you're going to say no discriminating words, then yeah, okay, don't call people racist. But calling people a grandpa, how is that an insult?
Yes, yeah, it's ageism. It's ageism. She went out of his age, and ageism is against sort of rules because it's discrimination. So she, out of all the things she called him like a bitch ass and a racist. Like she didn't get, in trouble for calling him a bitch ass, but she got in trouble for calling him a grandpa because of ageism.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of stupid to fall for that. By the way, I sent you a link again. Elicia, I hope it worked. Can you check it out?
I sent you one too.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dick.
I don't know why I'm orange today, but it is what it is.
You're turning my shield orange, my screen orange.
I'm a real patriot.
No, you're not. No, you're not. This is what I wanted to say pre-stream when we talked about it with John. The Orange family are not Dutch. I mean, they're Dutch royalty, but they're not Dutch. They're from the Hainaut family, and Hainaut is in France.
There is a connection with the Frisian. I don't know
because they intermarried.
Inbreeding. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't care about royalty anyway, so I'm not a Republican, but I don't really care about monarchy either.
Let's go to the subject matter.
Yeah, let's go back to politics and free speech. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is obviously because we've encountered a very interesting thing. And it's not very interesting because it's Count Dankula, because he's not the first and he will not be the last, but he's probably the highest profile one at the moment. At this point in time in the UK, in Scotland, but yeah, Scotland is the UK, a sheriff, which is another word for a judge, decided that free speech should not be free. And it's terrible that he did so, but he did so because the politics of the last few years decided that free speech shouldn't be free. This is a huge problem in Europe, and most people don't even realize or recognize this. Now, we see small things happening everywhere, but the mere fact that several people a week get arrested for wrongthink or wrong speech on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube shows you the state of mind we are having to deal with in Europe. Hi there, Realraven, by the way.
Hi, Modwain.
Welcome, mate. And hi there, Elicia. And hi there, Nick and Davey and Marcel and Crusader in the chat. And American Eric. Hi there, American Eric. Elicia brought me here. Well, American, I hope you will enjoy it here. And if you have questions or remarks, by all means, do not feel intimidated.
And I hope not by force, Eric.
Everybody comes by force. No, I'm sorry. I'm popping up on I went in and I'm like popping up everywhere I can that we're doing a live stream, you know? So, hello, American Eric.
So yeah, I mean, you're always welcome on my live stream. Hell, you should welcome me on your live stream, actually, considering you're bigger than me. But I know you can't live stream at the moment.
I can't live stream till May.
Well,
have you been a naughty girl?
I've been a very naughty girl.
Axel, I'm not sure if it's a problem, Realraven, but you're showing your face, mate.
Yeah, I wanted to mute myself instead. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, so your thoughts, good people of the interwebs. We have a law that says being grossly offensive is a problem, and this is reason to sentence someone. We have no idea what the sentence will be yet, but he has already been found guilty. So you can be guilty of being grossly offensive.
Yeah, but the worst thing was he wasn't found guilty for what he did. He was found guilty for what the judge said he did, despite all the evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's so bad about this. It's
Yeah.
not that he did something and they found that bad. It's that he didn't do something and then they said he'd done it anyway.
But that's the whole thing.
It was an assumed offense, right? I mean, the sheriff said somebody might be offended, or they assume that somebody is offended. That's still, the jury's still out that there is actually anybody offended. So
No, it's
if
not
I was a
even
lawyer, that's the point.
The jury
It's not
isn't
even
out.
that.
The jury isn't out if someone is offended, because the fact that he's been judged means that someone is offended.
The
but
judge
as far
was
as
offended.
yeah,
He said so himself.
That's only because of shitty. I don't know what kind of lawyer Count Dankula had, but
No.
you know, I would say, prove it, prove it. Bring me some people who are offended.
No, the judge said he was
sheriff that
offended.
claims it.
they can't bring anyone. There's only one person who put out a complaint, and the judge himself said, "No, this offends me."
No, the guilt doesn't hinge on offence. The guilt hinges on the fact that Dankula says, and the video's there, we've all seen it, it's a joke. This is what I'm doing, and I'm making my dog into the most offensive thing I can find. And the
Piss off
judge
my
said,
girlfriend.
I don't believe you. What you were really doing was promoting anti-Semitism.
But is that part of the Communications Act? I thought it's enough to be offended. I don't even know if intent is written in the law, and I know the law is faulty. That's what we need to prove.
Well, the law is faulty. That's
Well, the
simple
judge
enough.
has
But does
offended
the-
me,
does
and I'm
the-
going to let my
I mean-
MP know it.
Does the law state if you intend to grossly offend, or does it also include any accidental grossly offense? You know what I mean? If you say something,
Well, that's a question though, because it in saying that the judge didn't believe it was a joke and that the intent was to be anti-Semitic, intent is being stated as being relevant. However, the actual intent is proved to be not relevant.
Yeah. But that's the thing, because the law actually says that intent isn't relevant. And I haven't read it all, but if I understood it right, if someone perceives offense, this means it's offensive.
Yeah, which means that you can be offended by anything, and it all goes to hell in.
Yeah.
That needs to either a lawyer needs to prove that, or the public needs to prove that.
No, it's one worse.
That's not a practicable
It's one
law.
worse.
You know, if everybody takes offense, you will flood the whole country with.
Of course, and that is what we intend to do.
Well, that's basically what I said in. That's basically what I said in the video I put out.
Yeah, just make.
There's one problem with that tactic, though. I mean, they get to choose which. I mean, you know, even if you flood and there's lots of complaints.
Because they still have to process them.
Yeah.
The police are overstretched as it is, so you just flood them and say, right, according to the precedent you've set, this is offensive, and you can find plenty of real offences. You don't have to just say someone walking down the street was offensive, because there are videos of hate speeches, there are preachers, there are videos of all kinds of stuff.
Oh, aye.
So you don't have to, you know, say, oh, that person was being offensive for no reason. You can find real legitimate things to complain about.
Yeah, it's really scary, and the problem is, and this is something that they have been advocating and they have been trying to get going for a while now, because this is also about how, I think it was in Nottinghamshire, terrible English mine.
Nottinghamshire, yeah.
Yeah, that one, where they basically said that saying hi to a woman.
No, looking at her funny.
Well, looking at her funny too. Yeah, but no.
How you look at her,
saying
you
hi,
her.
and she doesn't have to be offended. Someone else can be offended for her.
Yeah.
So I'm saying something nice to you. Someone else hears it and feels it's offensive.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of the miscarriages of judges in following the Title IX, where people were raped with consent of both sides. So a woman and a man have consensual sex, but a third party decides that it was abuse. But the problem is that those Title IX verdicts had an excuse. They didn't actually study law. You know, I mean, to take this into the real law, that's ludicrous.
But this is the problem that we're having, and we had this. I mean, it's very clear now because of the Count Dankula case in the UK. But this is happening in the UK, and this is happening in Germany, and it has been happening for at least a year now. And I'm not sure if it isn't happening in the Netherlands yet. So I have to. I really can't find much of it. But it's beyond stupidity. Politicians voting in laws that eventually will kill the politicians themselves. Because in all fairness, in the UK, name me any one of the Scottish politicians that voted in this law. I can't.
I know, because it's not a Scottish law. It's
isn't
a UK law.
It's the UK law, which makes it worse.
We have a peculiar system in the UK because technically Scottish and English/Welsh law are separate. So we have separate judicial systems who report to different parties. But some of the laws are set by Parliament in Westminster, and some of them are local to Scotland. And thus knowing exactly what laws will apply to you can be very tricky.
But, I mean, doesn't this then mean that we can have a lawsuit against Teresa May for forcing or not forcing her political stances on us? I mean, the people who are in favor of Brexit can actually claim that Teresa May is how do you call it, filibustering the whole Brexit movement.
Yeah, well, we had a law case taken by the Remainers against the government. There have been law cases to do with Brexit.
Yeah, but these are against the Brexit.
No, but that's not the point. Whether they're for or against is not the point.
Yeah.
No, but
people have taken the government to court over Brexit.
Yeah, but they can take him to court on both sides of Brexit. The Remainers can take her to court because she's in favor of Brexit, and the Exiters, the Brexiters, can take her to court because she's filibustering the whole movement.
No. Teresa May. The thing is, these laws are very one-sided, and you need to have the right politics. And Teresa May is a feminist, so I don't think they're able to put her in court theoretically. I think it's all about what politics you have.
Yeah, I think that you cannot really argue on the outcome. I mean, that's a motivation, to abuse a bad law, as in, I have a biased kind of an idea of a biased outcome of what I want the outcome to be. But it's the principle that's the problem. It's the principle that says that if somebody takes offense, that's like a really, really bad, very imprecise kind of paragraph that's ready to be abused, and it's a typical. It takes the European stance of the benevolent tyrant, that, but the government is okay, they have only our best interests in heart, our best interests, what you call that? They only want the best for us, so they are not going to abuse this obviously flawed law. The problem is that it seems to be legislated for a benevolent tyrant who forces you to do the best, but you have to assume that the tyrant has no biased, he has no agenda, he has no political, he doesn't want to lead you into a certain direction. So, but it's the principle, the principle that's flawed. The motivations is just, it just follows on from passing a a bad law. So that you can't blame the sheriff for being offended and then just using the law. You have to blame the lawmakers.
Yeah, this is the problem I'm having. I mean, yes, the sheriff is an idiot too, but how the fuck did this become law?
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, that's
one of the problems is that it's actually just one part of the Communications Act 2003. And this is how bad legislation often gets on the statute, because it's just one bit and they vote and debate on the whole lot.
But it's
So-
scary though.
Who would like to bet that the idea behind the grossly offensive was either drafted by a woman or suggested to a man by a woman? Let's be sexist.
Well,
Because,
but
you
this
know,
is
if you are a man, you wouldn't, like a real man, you wouldn't actually think of that. You would, we'll have to legislate against being grossly offended, you know. Or if you're maybe you have never seen comedy in your life, you know. Maybe you have had a very protected upbringing, and, you know, it's I don't know, it beggars belief.
Can
I
I say
think-
something? Can I say something? Interject for a second.
yeah, sure.
Okay. So like YouTube is telling me I'm spamming our chat box, and I'm not allowed to chat right now.
Yeah, I've
Just
had that.
let people know that I was in the middle of saying something, but holy crap.
It should be better now.
Modwain, can you give Elicia a wrench?
I've already done that. It should be better now.
Well, then
Thank
you should
you.
be exempt from that.
But
Okay.
I put no limit on it, so I don't understand why.
Yeah, it
No,
shouldn't
I've
happen.
had that happen to me in one of Carlos's streams.
Can you type now, by the way, Elicia?
Try it now. Do you see, by the way, Modwain, do you see the article I'm sharing? Do you remember?
Yeah,
I
this
think
is
we
so-
really have to give this dude a name. Maybe you want to share it quickly with the stream.
I'm sharing it so
Kevin-
people can see it.
I am sharing it. I don't know how to activate
Yeah,
it.
no, I activated it so everyone sees
Okay,
it.
cool. So it's everybody remember this name and bring him up if you tweet to MPs or stuff like that. Kevin Crehan. I know this is a little bit of a side note, but he was arrested for putting bacon on something. And he
Yeah,
got,
I heard
12
about it
months.
on.
And
Was it Random Account talked about it?
yeah, exactly. I mean, he said 2 years, but according to this article, is 1 year. But it doesn't matter. It seems there is a problem of duty of care. You know, even if you're passing flawed laws that make people that cause people to be falsely imprisoned, you can't then also have an executive that sees to it that these verdicts are turned into potential death sentences by putting people into the wrong ward. You know, like somebody who maybe mocked the Muslim faith, maybe put them into a special cell block. And I don't know if you've seen Tommy Robinson's account of his incarcerations, you know, where he actually, when he was once moved to another prison, he actually staked out. He found out that he was basically going into a mainly Muslim cell block, and he knew that was like a death sentence. So what he did, in self-defense, he started a fight in the dining area, or like whatever you call it, in order to get into solitary confinement for his own protection. But it's really quite, you know. So A, you got bad laws that B can be abused by the executive. So the judicative fails, makes bad laws. The executive is encouraged to abuse these laws. And then they fail in their duty of care.
Well, they don't care. That's the whole point.
But there should be some, not just a public outcry. There should be some regulation against this, because it seems to work together. You know, the judicative and the executive. I mean, if a sheriff can make up an accusation on behalf of an unknown group, He says, "I'm sure there's millions of Jews or thousands of Jews that are grossly offended." It all plays together very well. I understand that, but it's systemic failure on multiple levels: judicative, executive.
It was a vexatious litigation that was entirely political. This is utterly clear.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
I mean,
they only found
words were had. Words were had.
Yeah. They only found one person that was willing, and they looked. They only found one person that was willing to put in a complaint. So I'm not saying this is something the Jewish people did, because that's nonsense.
Well,
Most Jewish people are
not.
like, yeah, okay, so it's a dog and he lifts his paw. Who cares?
Did you see? Even Gatzard said he. I mean,
yeah, of course, yeah.
Silly thing to say, but he said that it should still be allowed because it's the foundation. It's a principled stance you have to take, and you don't even have to have an opinion on whether it's offensive or not. This is not the point. It's not the point whether it is offensive. It's the point.
It's this conflation of words with violence.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Okay, so here's my simple question. Now, we know that he's been found guilty, but we do not know what his sentence will be. But we do know that one of the people that I think was convicted in the Rotterdam sex grooming scandal got convicted to 22 years, but left jail after 2 or 3 years. How much money do you want to put on the sentence of Count Dankula being longer than that?
None, because according to the Communications Act, I think the highest sentence would be 6 months. So
I think
I would bet. I don't think that they'll get away with community service, but I think maybe a reduced sentence, maybe 3 months or 1 month, and there may be they may set it out to what's it called? What it's called when you don't serve the sentence and you have a warning sentence. Suspended sentence. So then they might make a suspended sentence and suspend him from YouTube for 2 years. You know, they could do the Elliot Roger kind of Greg. Sorry, not Elliot Roger. Is it Greg Elliott? Greg Elliott, sorry. Greg Elliott kind of route by banning him from the internet, you know, as part of the suspended sentence, you know. Just you shut up about this now, because at the end of the day, they are using this legislation to control the current discourse, you know. That's what they want.
It's not going to work, and the shit is going to hit the fan big time.
But you know, what was your first, all you guys' first reaction? What would you like to have seen? Because my first reaction was, okay, maybe it's good. Maybe they have to put him into jail, and then there'll be really big protests. But at this stage now, I say no. I think this has to be. My personal opinion is it has to go into revision. We have to fund, I think it's about £24,000 worth, another trial. You know, just to because again, take the principled stance and prove that this judge is maybe not corrupt, but definitely incompetent.
Well, I don't think the judge seemed clearly to be under orders.
No, what would your John? What would your be your
well, I
outcome
have
would
no
be?
wish to say ever it's a good thing this person goes to jail, because that's somebody's life.
Yeah.
No, you know, I don't want anyone to pay a price. You know,
the thing is,
that would never be a thing. But to me, it's the guilt. The guilty verdict alone is what I condemn them for.
Yeah, so you would also vote for going into revision and funding that in some way?
No, just protests and messing the system and just showing them what they have done in ways that impacts them.
Okay, but John, what would you advise Count Dankula to do? What would you want him to do?
What would I want him to do?
Yeah. Want him to do?
I can't offer him advice, crikey.
Because I said like maybe okay, take the verdict, and he might go for it. He was saying a year in jail or whatever, which is unlikely, just to get out of it. And I can't. Obviously, I can understand that he will take whatever route.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, because this is what's happening. We are now discussing what would be acceptable for us to do.
Yeah.
To accept limits on our freedom of speech based solely on what someone else might feel. There is no answer to this question.
Yeah.
But I mean, you say acceptable, but that's exactly why I think they should go into revision and not accept it. Take the legal
But
route.
it's not about this case anymore. It's about
the law is
all
already the
law.
law.
But yeah, you see, the law is one thing, but the other thing is creating a precedent. So that
the law
you can...
is the thing. The precedent isn't the thing. The law is the thing. Because if we create the precedent, then someone else can try and neglect that precedent earlier set.
They can, but they can also use it in order to... if it's not easy to change a law, I know that would be the ultimate goal, would be to change that law because it's a silly law. But the first point is, and that's there was blasphemy laws. There was all sorts of laws that were kind of retrograde, and they some of them survived for centuries, and then they weren't used anymore. So I think that
but this is a new
you
law.
can't change the law.
So
you
this
have to
law
prove it stupid,
But this is a new law. It's just made, and it's already being used.
That's immaterial. Whether it's new or old law, it doesn't matter. You still fight as a accused or as a solicitor or barrister or whatever. As within the law, you still fight that within the framework of all the other laws, and you say.
This is not something.
If you are a defendant of Count Dankula, then you will come up with a way to prove that the law is actually an absurd law and it can't be enforced, because half of the jury or half of the audience would have to go to jail. Because everybody can take offense, whatever you do. But I think that is the first step to remove a law. You can't just say, "Oh, let's just all protest and then go back to the House of Lords or House of Commons and they will make a new law." That's not how it works. It works by being applied and being.
No, I'm sorry. Actually, that is how it works. This is
but
why
it's not gonna.
vote.
Yeah, in your ideal world, Modwain. But it's not gonna fly.
Listen. Quite simple. If we're talking about the UK, there's one thing everyone in the UK needs to do next election.
Yeah,
don't vote Labour and don't vote Conservative. And then
this doesn't help Dankula, At that point in time,
we can't help Dankula anymore.
He's already served half of his time, and they've created the precedent for incarcerating more people. And that's why I'm saying that's not.
Dankula isn't the first one.
I understand that.
So there are already people in jail because of this.
I understand that.
We can't stop people being in jail. We have to stop the law.
We have to change.
I understand that, but I think the first step is to, if you're a nobody and you have like this Kevin guy, you have nobody to fund you to fight this. It's very hard to fight a court case against a system that has unlimited resources. As Gregory Elliott has experienced, it is very hard when you're up against a system that has unlimited funds. For unlimited amount of lawyers to support their interests against you. But it's different with Count Dankula. It would be different because you could actually. It's a power play. At the end of the time,
I'm going to quote what Nick's radio says. Helping Dankula isn't the point. Helping the world is, and this is it, because everyone is talking about Dankula because it's high profile.
Yeah,
there are 9 people a week disappearing because, well, not disappearing. Obviously, we know where they are. They're in jail.
But you can argue until the counts come home that the actual law is an injustice and that it needs to be changed. But if you cannot prove that in a trial, then it won't be changed.
No,
But
you can't
prove
disagree with you there because
you can't. I'm sorry. I'm going to finish this. You cannot prove that the law is unjust because the law is allowed by politicians, and that makes it just. It may be a stupid law, but the government made it a law, and therefore the judge has to.
This is not, you misunderstand how the law works. The law still has to be applied by lawyers, by the justice system. The law in itself, it does not claim to be a moral guideline or like an absolutely true guideline.
It's not a moral guideline. But the fact that it is law
means... you get it wrong. Sorry. Let me just finish here. You're getting it wrong. Yeah, the judicial process has to find the truth of.
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
the judicial process is not about the truth. It never has been.
No, it's about if it complies to the law. And if it complies to the law, listen, if it is against the law to walk through a green light, which now obviously isn't the law, but if the law would change and it would become that, okay, you have to stand still at green and walk at red, then that will be enforced. There is no... all laws are man-made. I'm sorry. Yeah. There is no idea of, well, it's an unjust law. It doesn't matter if it's an unjust law. Once it's been applied by government, then the law enforcers have a diligent duty to enforce that law, whether we agree with it or not. So it's not the judge the judge in this case was an idiot too. But
what you're saying, Modwain, is definitely you want Count Dankula to go to prison, as all the other dozen people who already done, and the injustice has to be carried on until the law is changed. Is that correct? That's in your best interest, because that will demonstrate if a lot of innocent people go to jail.
I'm glad that you put it on my
shoulders. The only way that the law is going to change. Of course, that you also. Put it,
no, Realraven, I'm sorry. You are wrong, because it's not on my shoulders. I didn't make this law.
I understand
but the law has to
strategies
change.
Here.
No, there are no...
I'm not saying that you wish for Count Dankula to go to jail.
The only strategy is, we can talk about it as much as we want, but we need to hold our politicians responsible. That's what we need to do. The law needs to change. Because as long as the law is there...
but
as long as the law is there, police officers and the judicial system will have to enforce it. And there is nothing they can do about it.
But here's the problem: the law is not going to be changed as long as it works. Yeah, it's being applied. People are being put to prison. Everything's hunky dory. Okay, some people may be. Let me finish for a second. Some people may be upset. Some people may protest. But the law has been followed. Everybody's happy. Now, if you attack that law as a defendant, as a lawyer, in a court of justice, and you're able to prove that it's nonsensical, then if you can win against it by fighting it in the court, I think that's the place, because politicians have a fuck all idea about the practicalities of the law. You create precedents, you create, it's called case law, based on rulings, and you get judges who have actually brain cells, So, but if you don't argue against it in front of a court and just accept it, then you might as well, okay, that's fine. We're all basically hostages of some politicians. This is not how, in my mind, this is not how it should work.
Yes, you are in a way right, but in a way wrong, because the problem here is the judge personally has said that he does not believe what Count Dankula said in the video itself and in court he was doing.
Yeah.
And
so
has the judge his own interpretation of it. So
and the judge obviously also told.
What about Axel? Please, you asked me to let you finish. So it is not about the law, because the law hasn't been applied.
But does the
What has
judge?
been applied is essentially a communist style. This is what we're telling you you did, irrespective of what you actually did or why you actually did it, and found them guilty.
I understand that. I understand the mechanism. It's the KGB.
And the act was the Communication Act. That's what he was charged for. But the Communication Act itself fits in with other laws. And what I signed a petition, and what we're campaigning for is a free speech act. And if you have a free speech act, you don't have to worry about the Communication Act.
Yeah, that's the next step.
Is rendered toothless.
Well, first you have to prove that that it's not practicable. That this law isn't practicable.
Yeah,
and I think you are not going to
flood them with complaints of legitimate problems.
Okay.
Because it's no good. We can argue till the cows come home, and because it's been in court for 2 years, we can argue till the cows come home that what Dankula did wasn't offensive, and we can all agree it wasn't offensive. Yet some judge has managed to find it offensive.
Yeah, and what about, like, is there nobody else that talked on behalf of the accused? Did he have no defense? I would like to have a, I know there was no jury, but is it just really one judge, one guy with a dick who puts it on the table and say, I say whatever, we're going to chop off your hand? How does this justice system work? I don't understand that. It's just one guy who says, well, I feel that you meant this, and I'm going to send you to jail.
And that's what he said, and that's certainly what Dankula said he said.
And wouldn't you agree that the right thing to do would be to call for a revision and go for a jury trial?
Well, wouldn't
that be? If you can fund it.
Without reading the transcripts and actually finding out a lot about the specifics of this case, we can't really discuss what went wrong with it. And neither do we know what the legal options are, because they're not all the same. You can appeal at some types of sentences in some kinds of circumstances, in some situations, but quite what the path is, who knows? You hear of cases being taken all the way to the House of Lords and to the European Court of Human Rights. I don't know whether this falls under that remit.
Well, I was thinking about definitely doing something involving Amnesty International. Okay, we should have done it with Bacon Guy or whatever, but
Amnesty are a bunch of commies at the moment.
I understand that, but you still have to at least apply the principle. At least
the problem is we can't apply the principle because they are following the rules they set up. There is no principle of the matter. These are the laws they made up, and they are following the laws. Now we can disagree with that, and we do, but we can't change it because it's the law. So we have to change
I understand.
the law.
I just think that you're not going to achieve anything by appealing to, vote for somebody different because some nobody somewhere.
No, you're correct.
No, that is a non-option anyway.
No normal person knows about Count Dankula. They don't give a shit.
It's not even that. Just there is no one else.
And the only way that you're going to propel this into the limelight and have people talking about this is by fighting it, by appealing it, by going to the highest court possible.
Judiciary method of, spamming the system.
Send letters to your.
But that's something that we can do, but it's not something that Count Dankula can do. I'm saying
everyone can do this. Send letters to your representatives.
And it's going to do exactly nothing.
I'm very you have to start someone. I know, but you have to start somewhere. Because we cannot fight the law. There is one way
you can appeal the law. You can appeal a judgment, and then you can try and get to the actual bedrock of it. Get to the bedrock of
someone else, and then they'll just do it to someone else.
Yeah,
I understand. Creating a precedent. You are creating a precedent, and the precedent will be that at the end of the day, they have to admit that it's completely arbitrary, that they make up the intent, that they make up the offense in their heads, and that
I
it's
understand what
based
you're
on.
saying. I
You
understand
need to
what you're
force
saying.
them to admit that, and this is where you need a good lawyer, where you say, "Okay, Your Honor,
I'm thinking-
so it's based on your head, it's based on your judgment, on your prejudice."
You are making one small mistake, though. You seem to think this is the first one.
I'm not thinking that. It's just that we have an overwhelming amount of proof that, like Count Dankula made. Before he made the joke and after he made the joke, he made qualifiers.
But
Yeah.
And all this
these
proof
were
has been
ignored.
taken
That
along.
mattered. The judge ignored it.
Yeah, and that's what you
therefore-
need to point out. You need to point out. Look, you're closing your eyes. You're blinding yourself, and
And
this
that's what
is
they
the
do.
first
We
step
know
where you
that.
check it.
But do you
Huh?
think?
That's why you appeal it, because you say that judge was an idiot. Get a different judge.
No. The problem that the judge was an idiot doesn't really make a difference, because what that judge did is the one thing that the law needs. He needed one person.
Abuse it, flex his
needed-
muscles, and put his stick on the table. That's what he did.
He needed
He's
one
scum.
person that said that he was offended by it. And to make it easier on everyone else, he decided that, you know what, I'm going to be that one person who is offended by it. And that's the problem. It's the law that needs to change. And we're not changing the laws by appealing it, because then we are still appealing the same law. I'm going to respond to the chat for a second. Hi, Desert Pioneer. You sound awfully defeatist, Modwain. Maybe I am in this, because this is the death knell of free speech. And we're talking about it now because of Count Dankula, but this has been going on for more than a year already. And no one seems to be waking up. And after the Count Dankula case, we still won't wake up, because most people simply won't care.
You seem to argue that, the best thing would be if Count Dankula went to the slammer, because that will increase
You're
the
now
negative publicity.
using an argument you're now using an absurd argument. I'm not saying the best thing would be if he would go to the slammer. The best thing would be if we would repeal the law.
But if he only gets communities, I'm just saying pragmatically, if he gets community service, let's say a best case scenario, he has to do 200
hours. If only
hours.
he loses an inch of his hair, the judgment is already too high.
Yeah, but you understand this, but the public doesn't.
There is no but, and that's the thing. We argue about buts. There is no but. By creating
I understand this.
We are already giving credence.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because whatever you say, the majority doesn't know it, and you are not going to convince the majority. They need drastic things happening in front of their eyes to get anything changed. You're all very idealistic, and we all are, but you are not going to get the normie on this stage, because they will they go into the minutiae of the case and say, well, what did the guy say? Oh, he said gas the Jews. All right, or maybe he deserved it. Did you see the Britishers video on this? That was very good, very enlightening.
There are people in jail for less than that.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
You're talking about the normies as if they don't know. Elicia, you wanted to say something.
No, they don't care.
One moment, Real. Elicia, you wanted to say something.
Okay, I just wanted to say that best case scenario, right? Best case scenario is that he does go to jail and something horrific happens to him in jail, and the publicity behind it might be enough to get the law changed.
No, it won't.
Well, Bacon Man was killed, so what else can
he didn't have the same kind of exposure before or the same kind of speech. Things don't change. People are not willing to change unless something horrible happens. We've seen it time and time again in history, and especially in Europe, it seems like it needs something really horrific to happen to change.
And these are the sort of things that civil wars have started over.
But first, I don't want Dankula to pay the price. Secondly, the politicians are too adept at Teflon shoulders and say, "Oh, we only made the law and we did it with the best of intentions. Not our fault that this man had just happened to go to a prison and got killed in the showers. Nothing to do with us, Gov."
I'm not trying to sound mean or glib or uncaring. I'm just saying is that a lot of the laws do not change unless something.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm just saying that's my opinion. I don't want him to pay that price.
To be that way. It's sad that it has to be that way, but I'm just saying best case scenario for freedom of speech across the pond is to see more and more people be harmed by this law that are in the spotlight.
Well, to be fair, I think the best thing to do is to just generate enough civil protest that the government will take notice. And it will, if enough and the right types of people make a fuss.
What have protests ever done? I've never seen one thing change because of a protest.
You'd be surprised in this country.
Read about Mahatma Gandhi.
The classic example was gay marriage. Gay marriage was really unpopular. Then there was just a switch in public attitude, and before it was law in a couple of years. Just bang.
So you want to use the model of the gay marriage?
Use that as an example of the way that public attitude, strength of feeling. Politicians, they pay attention to what they think is important to people.
I think Elicia is right for half the part, because you say only things will change when something drastic happens, and that's true, but it's not the only way. Because think about this: how did the Marxists and the SJWs did it? How did they affect the laws? How did these laws came in place in the first place? Not by something drastic. It has taken decades of protesting, activism. They are busy with this for the last 40 years. This is the result of 40 years of activism, and it's now blossoming. Let's put it that way. And if you want to counteract it, this is gonna take. If we're going the peaceful way, this is gonna take decades to change it again. So there are two ways.
I'm not agreeing with that. I mean, the changes could go pretty fast. And I'm going to respond to High Desert again. What would you prefer, civil war or oppression? And I would prefer neither, to be honest. I would go for the third option and return to the rule of law, but let the rule of law and freedom of speech be loose of one another. Because what we do now in Europe, we have laws, blasphemy laws, speech laws, that will actually prevent people from speaking freely. Unless, of course, you're of a certain ethnicity or of a certain gender, because then you can say whatever the hell you want. And this double standard creates segregation within our society.
And resentment.
And resentment. And because of that segregation and resentment, the chances of people going into aggression is far larger. And this I would love to prevent. Well, that's the thing. You need... Oh, I'm sorry. The High Desert responded, but when the rule of law is oppressive, what's next? And this is the thing. We need to find a way to have a rule of law of consensus and not a rule of law of the individual versus...
Well, no, what you need is a law that applies to everybody, and we don't.
Can I ask you as a question? I mean, so is everybody on the panels like over in Europe, right? So can you guys like all get in trouble just for making YouTube videos?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, I'm not in England, so I don't know if this madness has fully swapped over to Ireland. I'd say Germany and UK would be specific hotspots for this.
The Netherlands too, unfortunately.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Were there people arrested for tweets in Netherlands?
Yes, for tweets there was one. I think it was a cartoonist. I'm not sure. Oh no, it was a cartoonist who tweeted something out, and he got a visit of the police. And also, that's the only example I know at the moment.
And I mean, we're not only talking about whether you can get arrested for it, but you could definitely lose your job.
That is ridiculous. That is just insane.
Yes, and you get your windows kicked.
But I'm sorry, but you can use you can lose your job in America as well for having an opinion that's offensive. Definitely. No society will protect you from this. You know, the private companies can make up rules on what you can do in social media, for instance. You know, what kind of opinions you spout. That law won't really help you there very much.
Actually, the law should help you there.
We need to go back to being self-sufficient. Have people start making, you got your small businesses, buying local. We really have to decentralize this power. And the governments are way too big. I know that. I mean, you guys are talking about free speech and all of that, and it's horrific because it's the most important thing. But at the same time, worldwide, there are so many oppressive laws that are passed. And in the United States, you can, I could lose my house at any time if my tree in my yard doesn't measure at least 13 feet high. Mm-hmm. So
really,
we allowed this tyranny to happen. And that's what I'm saying is that we're all talking about, protesting and things will change. Well, yeah, things have changed, but they've gotten worse.
Yeah.
And worse. And I really think that until we have some real martyrs going on, it's not going to get better. I mean, I don't wish that on anybody, but it's...
No, I agree, but I don't think the danger is just governments anymore. Because
it's
the huge corporations are way more powerful than government.
Aye.
Well, corporations are only as strong as the government that's ruling over them, and
They're not because they're multinational.
They do. Look at what happened. Look what happened in Venezuela with the car manufacturer. The government just came in and seized everything. So I'm sorry. I know that corporations have untold power. But that power can be taken at any second from the government.
Except what happens? So say your government got heavy with Apple. They'd just leave. They'd just go to China. That's fine. That's fine. They would still be doing exactly the same thing. The corporation.
They are. Well, if you want to talk about bad corporations, then let's talk about Bayer. And what Germany just allowed Bayer to do. Bayer just bought Monsanto. So now Bayer effectively owns 25% of all seeds and medicals and stuff. So, they are a real risk. They are. I mean, we're sitting here worried about some freaking little idiot on the internet that did something stupid. And we're arguing about free speech when we'll never get free speech. We all know this. And in the meantime, one of the biggest disgusting mergers just happened, and nobody talks about that.
No, you're right.
Yeah, you're correct on that, to be honest. There is more to it than just free speech.
But, it's like you put these, like you've got free speech laws in America, and that at least gives you an anchor, something on which to build. We don't even have that. And therefore, we want to fight to get that anchor, and then we can move on to the next point. But until we get that anchor, they can just swoop in, trump up any charges they want, put words in our mouths, and send us to jail. Because that's what they did.
That's what I'm trying to say, John. That's what I'm trying to say is that none of this will change unless society itself changes. I mean, what is free speech, right? Look at what Google does to us. Look what YouTube does to us. Look what businesses do to us. Look what churches do to us. Until every person, or at least we have to be at a tipping point of 60% of people, until 60% of your population wants freedom of speech, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how many protests you do, unless you change 60% of the population's mind.
Here's the thing. We have the delusion amongst most people that we have free speech. What this case can demonstrate quite clearly is that we don't. What we have is only the illusion. And therefore, it's not a question of persuading 60% to want free speech. It's to persuade 60% that we don't have free speech and they certainly ought to fight for it.
Yeah. And that's the main issue.
Well, then here's my question then. Do we have examples other than, so Count Dankula is kind of, in my mind, it's kind of like he is like the Corey Feldman. He does not look like the person that people would be fighting for in mainstream. He looks scary. He looks like he just deserves to go to jail. Just kind of like Corey Feldman, even though he was sexually abused as a child and everybody knows it, he's not a good
You are quite right on that. So quite right.
Can you find somebody that the 60% will even care about? Because when I'm looking at Count Dankula, he looks like,
yeah, you are correct.
I was like, so what? So he
was profiled. Let's be honest, he was profiled for prosecution. They've picked the perfect working class Scottish male who looks like shit to persecute because they knew he was the least sympathetic type of person they could find.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the coverage from the press, so many pictures of him showing him laughing like a devil. You know, it's just like they seem to deliberately choose that.
But the media will never be on the side of what we want because the media are part of the problem.
Yeah, until they're locked up themselves.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Surely somebody attractive, or at least put together, presenting a little bit different, has anybody that looks differently been through this? And if so, why aren't we covering that? If we want to do things.
Because they're very careful.
At this point in time, people don't see it like that. It's kind of like the whole thing with the Red Guards in Mao, China. The Red Guard were basically kids being ideologically driven to push the narrative of Mao. They went against their teachers, they went against their parents, they went against their government, or at least the governments that were not in favor of Mao's way. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and people let them. This is where we are now. We are being pushed and pushed and pushed, and people let them. In the end, this caused Mao's revolution. And the funny thing is that the people of the Red Guard, they are disappearing as well. Well, not are disappearing. They disappeared as well. Because once the people that want the power have the power, they can't use the useful idiots. Now, we're not the useful idiots. We're the one that push away. The useful idiots will be the last to fall. But in the end, we will all fall. And that's the problem with allowing this sort of stuff to happen. Even though there are worse problems when it comes to crime. But at this point in time in the UK, they are actually working to create a segregated society where certain people can't do anything right and other people can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Brilliantly said. I agree with that. I got to step away for just a minute, but that was spot on what you just said. Spot on.
Thank you for the compliment.
So, for my knowledge, again, this is a cultural problem. Again, it comes to the culture.
Yep. Once again.
Okay.
And an education problem. The fact that people don't know the real history of politics and power in this country, and they believe it is much freer and representative than it really is.
Yeah.
know, and it's necessary to show the sorts of people who are too busy paying their mortgages and just making do that this is a problem for them too.
Yeah.
Because they're just assuming that it isn't a problem. But if we can show them actually it is a problem, and not only that, but it's a problem for you or your son, you know, you've got a teenage son and he's going to do some shitposting on the internet and that can send him to jail. Do you really want that when he's just being a jerk?
Yeah. But most people won't even recognize it until it is too late.
Yeah, and most people don't understand the threat, and therefore we have to get people aware that yes, their teenage son is in risk of going to jail for saying something stupid on the internet that he doesn't even mean, just to get a rise out of some stranger.
And the thing is, I mean, we make it sound like it is all about Count Dankula, and it's not. He is just one of the many spokes in the wheel. And by pretending that it's about him or that it's about the individual that we don't know. No, funny enough, this is about all of us. Because as I said in my video about this, if we get a group of people together and together we say, okay, who are we going to attack? Okay, let's attack blah, blah, blah. Okay, then we look at what blah, blah, blah said. And then we say, oh, wait a second. This could be interpreted as something offensive. I feel offended, don't you? Yeah, I feel offended too. Right, so that's the 10 of us now. You go to that police station, I go to that police station. The 10 of us go bring in a report on how we are offended by something blah, blah, blah said. And either the governor and the police will act on it, which means that in the end the whole society will collapse, or they will not act on it, which in the end means that the whole society will collapse because it's segregating and creating favoritism. And that's the danger of these laws.
Yeah, you have protected groups who can do anything, and they know. Did anyone see Garrett? It was on his second channel, The Awesome, a video about the patriarchy. It was just called The Patriarchy. And it was showing an extended scene of a fight between a couple of black Americans, a man and a woman. And the woman was behaving, and Gary was describing the woman. And it was essentially, everyone was telling the man that although the woman was being aggressive to him, not for him not to respond, not to hit, and not to do anything. And Gary was pointing out that the absolute joy this was causing the woman who was causing the problem because of the power it gave her. And this is the problem. If you create a protected group and they know they're a protected group, they will abuse it very, very quickly. And that is the problem, because when they abuse it, there will be a response. We've already had one. We had the guy who attacked the people coming out the mosque in Highgate, or wherever it was.
Yeah. No, in Finsbury Park.
Finsbury Park. So we've already had one response. But if there is this sense of untouchability spreads and more assaults come as a consequence of it, then there will be more of a reaction as a consequence of that.
And we will see more violence, and in the end, it will turn out into civil unrest and civil war.
But someone was asking earlier if there was any consequence of protesting. Back in the early 1980s or the mid-1980s, there were race riots in Britain. There were a lot of riots in cities, in Brixton, in Toxteth. And what the core issue was the way the police treated the black community. And the consequence was a fundamental change to the way policing's done. It wasn't fixed perfectly because you still got the Stephen Lawrence incident, which was another case of the police failing the black community. But now that the consequence of all that is the police inability to act in places like Rotherham and Newcastle and Rochdale and Telford because they fear being called racist, because they've been so indoctrinated into community-friendly policing that they now are afraid of their shadows. But it isn't true to say that unrest leads to no change, because it did.
Yeah. And it's okay to have unrest if there is a cause and a reason for it. But these unrests are actually created by political parties to I don't understand this, to be honest, to push a political narrative. Hi there, Square, by the way. So this is a scary move, and this is why I wanted to talk more about the politicians than about the free speech in this case, because this is a problem for free speech, but this is a problem because of our politicians. And what causes the politicians to act like this? I don't know.
Saudi money.
Probably.
What do we think about the corporations who are highly invested in the politicians?
That's a problem.
I think this is more a problem of the corporations and all the businesses and the multinationals than really the politicians. Because those politicians, what do they do after their political career? They go into business. They go into business in the private sector, and that's what you are seeing.
Maybe we should make a law that there can't be any multinational corporations anymore. I mean, is that even possible? Because like I'm so hung up on the Bayer thing because I'm really pissed about it.
But the problem is at what level do you pass such a law, and under whose jurisdiction would you implement it?
Well, what if nation states decided that only somebody that lives in that country for at least 7 months out of the year can own and operate a business in that country?
Now, the problem is that with that, you put a limit on the free enterprise of individuals.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not
practical. That's the fundamental problem with it.
I don't see how that's putting a limit on individuals. I mean, I don't think it's right that, well, I mean, it is a real problem.
It is a problem. The tax affairs of certain notorious American corporations are a scandal in this country because they don't pay any taxes. They turn over billions and they pay no taxes because they shell it all out to somebody with more preferential tax treatment.
Yeah. The one thing,
you know, if governments pass a law which just said, you do business here, you get taxed on the business you do here, you shift no funds abroad.
Well, taxation is theft, so I can't really like.
Well, I know you can't, but we can.
I honestly think, like, I'm serious. Like, I really think that when you look at the problems with all of this stemming is we still have not escaped kingship, but instead of kingships now, what we have are corporations that fund and are the puppet masters of these politicians, and the politicians will never change until we figure out a way to get rid of these.
What you do, you make a lifetime ban on any politician leaving to sit on or to work for anyone they've ever had that has any business in the areas of politics they've been involved in. Because time and again, you see a politician retire and go and sit on the board of the company they were doing business with.
Another problem with these restrictions is the research and development, because if this big, that's maybe a positive side of these multinationals. They've got this big, these large budgets. So if you take a company like Pfizer, a pharmaceutical company, well, maybe they will invent the cure to cancer. So how are they going to distribute that?
I know why you're laughing.
No,
it's just an example.
Somebody
No, a very funny one though. I get the joke.
There is absolutely no incentive for any corporation to create a cure for a disease that makes them so much money. And I know this for certain because
they will buy at patents that seek to find a cure so they can bury them.
Exactly. Also, the fact that Monsanto again has settle down, Elicia. I'm just saying they're somewhere in history we went wrong with the patent laws, right? So what used to create innovation has now created stagnation and slavery. I mean, I follow Forbes magazine, and Pfizer was working on a cure for hepatitis C. They couldn't come up with the cure, but they found this pill that they could sell for 30 years, and they were talking about all the great, wonderful profits they were going to make from it. So the fact is that the medical field has gone so rogue with these patent laws that they don't even come up with. We're facing a crisis right now with bacteria that is immune to all of our antibiotics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
There's no money in it because antibiotics, they kill the disease. And so now we're about to have this worldwide epidemic, and neither socialism leads to stagnation, but obviously the model of making a profit off of medicine has led to this non-curing disease where Generation Z is just inundated and has a shorter lifespan than all the generations before them.
Yeah, we're leaving a golden age. It's a fact because, as you say, there'll be no antibiotics, and water will become a scarcity, and there'll be wars over it.
Yep.
And people will look back at this age and go, and they did what?
Okay, but can I give another example? After the New Orleans disaster with all the drownings, they called the Dutch, because we're famous for our dikes, and they asked them for the knowledge and their materials and their constructive talents. Let's put it that way. So if we put in these restrictions, how are we going to build dikes over in New Orleans? Because companies are not allowed to work in other companies.
No. I think I understand what Elicia is saying, though. Even though I don't think it's the multicultural or the multi-corporate, multi-state issue. The problem is that these companies all are being protected.
I agree.
That is the problem. Because let's take this example that you both gave for the pharma industry. The pharma industry can only get away with charging as much as they do because they are saved from competition. There is no competition on the market because the laws protect the pharma industry. Bayern is able to spend so much money to buy Monsanto because everything they produce is protected. No one is allowed to challenge their hegemony.
Yeah, and then the governments write laws that further protect them.
Yeah, and this is a problem. This is also why I keep saying we do not live in a capitalistic system. We live in a corporatism. Well, basically, it's a plutocracy. We live in a plutocracy. Money rules.
So it's more a question of accountability. What would be the solution to that? A worldwide government?
No. Yeah.
The opposite.
The stop of worldwide protectionism.
Yes, but that's not centrally regulated or.
Well, I think that a good start, not to be American-centric, but if Americans passed a law, it would probably help because we consume most of the medicine. Let's just be honest. We're a druggy nation. It's true. We are a druggy nation.
Yeah, you have all those opiate addiction problems, don't you?
Well, I'm not even worried about the opioids. But,
no, I'm just saying. But you know, and it's like because of the regulations over here, you don't have it as a wide mainstream problem.
There's 12 prescription. If you were to give like spread out all of the medicine across the board to every person in the United States, including children, every person would have 12 prescriptions.
That is insane.
It's bad. It's bad. But that's because our country, we've become a country where a major part of our gross domestic product is medication and medical intervention. So if the United States did some of these things that say, hey, this, and this, I think the world would follow suit.
Well, maybe. The problem is indeed that simply one country can't do it. For example, if the Netherlands would say, well, we want to stop protecting the pharma industry, they can't. They can't, because they're not allowed to, because we are all part of international trade agreements.
Mm.
And there is your problem. But, for example, companies in India, they sell certain drugs way cheaper than America or Europe.
And in Africa.
They do, indeed. And they are a lot cheaper. A Dutch biology professor, biochemical professor, researched certain chemicals, researched certain production patterns on making certain medication. And he found out that he could be 90% cheaper than that we are already being told it costs. And he would still make a profit. 90%. It's amazing that we accept this. We are like, yeah, okay, yeah, this happens.
This is way worse than mafia.
This is way worse than mafia.
Mafia actually needs to work for the money. Jesus.
Well, that's why they go straight. You know, why they go into legitimate businesses, because, you know.
But it's too stupid for words. I always thought, for the longest time, I thought the banking industry made the most money. It's not even close. The pharmaceutical industry is so much more stronger. Anyway, yeah, Elicia, you have to go. I'm sorry to see you go.
No, I'm having so much fun with you guys. I miss being online so much, like this live chat. But unfortunately, I do have to go. Can I
was going to type good night, but my bloody keyboard's not working again.
Everybody.
I'm going to be live tomorrow with somebody else's channel.
Okay.
It's a small channel. It's Bold Like a Leopard. And we're going to be talking about men with dicks. Or sorry, women with dicks. Women with dicks. Sorry.
Chicks with dicks.
Honestly.
Trap. It's a trap.
The bearing meme.
Yeah.
Chicks with dicks.
Yeah, he sent a message to, what's that annoying twat's name?
Yeah, Mr. Blogbot.
And as if he was sympathetic, just to get him to read it out on camera.
Yeah,
and sure enough, he did.
It's so funny. But thank you, Modwain. Could
you stick a post or something on to say what that channel is, and then we'll pick it up?
I definitely will, and I'll post things and everything. But yeah, because I love these live chats. I'm sorry, I get very upset over the pharmaceutical industry, as everybody knows. I'm like so anti-pharma. It's not funny. But anyway. It's been lovely.
I think I made
Everybody
2 videos
subscribe
about that.
to Elicia.
Yeah.
I was binge watching your stuff. It's pretty good.
Oh, good.
I did tell you. Yeah. I did tell you, mate, didn't I?
It is good.
Good, because I'm going to be talking about cults over the next couple of weeks, because it should be fun.
I have to tell you, it's ideal. It's ideal material to listen to while playing Tomb Raider.
That's funny. That's funny. But thank you again. I appreciate Modwain. Thank you for having me on your channel.
You're more than welcome. You don't have to thank me for that. Thank you for coming.
Because I'm deplatformed, but yeah, I got to go watch the baby now, and you know how that works if I'm online and I'm watching the evil 2-year-old. So, all right.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Bye.
But yeah, there is a lot of problems with the pharma industry as well. But funny enough, these problems, again, are because of our politics.
Yeah, but it's circular.
It is,
because the powerful and the influential have always molded politics into their image. It happens to be no longer so much individuals as corporations. So, you know, people say, you know, I've even encountered people say, oh yeah, politicians created the military-industrial complex. No, you do not know your history. The military-industrial complex was there and shaped American politics.
Yeah.
You just have to go back far enough.
Oh well. Well, we had a good talk so far.
Let me mute myself.
We should have a system where everyone gets to be a politician for a year and that's it for life.
Well, I always said that those that want to lead us shouldn't, and those that should lead us are the ones that didn't really want to.
Yeah.
That way you prevent people, I mean, career politicians, honestly.
Yeah. Well, term limits.
Well, term limit, definitely, yeah.
Which, you know, strangely never happened in the US after Trump promised it.
Well, the senators and the Congress, they definitely need it, yeah.
All politicians, because, you know, if they have to go out into the world, and especially if you also do my suggestion of cutting off their avenues of a cushy job in their spheres of influence, then they might have a little bit more concern for the world they're creating out there.
Yeah. And then they feel that they are part of it. So maybe because now we have politicians that simply don't care about the common people. I bet you donuts to dollars that Jeremy Corbyn knows absolutely no one that earns a living by honest work.
Of course. None of them do.
But they're the Labour Party?
Yeah, and in the UK, something like 60% of them are lawyers. Which is insane. All the politicians and 60% are lawyers.
Yeah.
We have we have the Social Democrats. I think that comes close to the Labour Party in that respect, and it's the same problem.
Yeah.
But they got punished.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah, they did.
But you have a representative system, which is at least, we've had parties like UK or other parties, and they can get 10% of the vote and they'll get no seats or just one seat because of our particular system. And it is so beneficial to the two entrenched parties because they have to really fuck up to have any proper threat to them.
So why would they change the system?
So why would they change the system? Exactly. Exactly.
Which in itself is a problem, to be honest.
In France is the same thing, I suppose, where Le Pen has so many votes but doesn't get any seats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, you know, or the whole system is dictatorship of the majority. So that it doesn't matter how many seats you get, as long as you don't get enough, you might as well not got any.
Yeah.
There are no simple solutions, I guess.
No, unfortunately, they're not.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is why the feminists took their long, slow road through march through the institutions, as they call it. And got all their power in lobbying and so being the research bodies that are consulted and so forth. Because that's far more powerful than being the government.
Yeah. Which is problematic. I like that word though.
I know. I love the word collective.
Oh, why?
The trouble is it is ruined.
Oh, it's absolutely ruined. It makes no sense using it anymore. Yes. But yeah, it's still.
You know, when that debate happened about what the community was.
Yeah.
And the word that immediately sprang to mind was, we're a collective. That is a bunch of free individuals coming together and interacting freely.
Yeah, but they were not a collective. We are a community only by...
No. That is what a collective means.
Yeah.
However, collectivism means the exact opposite.
Oh, aye. It means that you all come together to have one opinion.
No, it's not individuals acting together. It's everyone being subjected to.
That's what I'm saying. We all come together, and then together we all have one opinion.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have other opinions. You're not allowed to deviate. Anyway, guys, it's slowly dying now.
It is.
We did have a good talk, and I know it came heart to heart.
It's not dying. Sorry, I used the later half. I mean, it was very vocal in the first part. I used the later half to write an email to my mastering engineer because I'm sending some tracks out. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That's okay, mate. That's okay. We did have a good talk. We didn't completely agree with each other, especially in the beginning. But personally, I do love that because I don't want this to be an echo chamber.
It never will be.
No, well, yeah, indeed. Normally I would go on for half an hour, but in all fairness, I'm a little bit knackered. And we did talk a lot, and we did expend our, well, whatever it is we expend.
Well, I have to collect Mrs. Raven from the hospital tomorrow. So,
well, I hope she's doing well, mate.
Yeah, it'll all work out.
Okay.
I'm happy that I can get her back now, so it's great.
That is good news. That is good news.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you guys want to shill your stuff?
I've actually something to shill this week. I did a video.
Yeah. Well, I want to chill Lana's channel once more. She released another song. Scars to Your Beautiful is the original track, and it's about fat shaming. It's very funny. It's on her channel, so listen to it, guys. At some stage, I'm going to remix it and put it on mine, but I'm working on other stuff at the moment.
You know, I've been trying to bite my tongue, and I can't do it. How often does she hear people say that she has a porn star name?
I don't know, but now that you pointed out,
yes, as soon as I heard this, I thought that's a porn star name.
John, I'm going to be 100% serious with you. I don't think she will be surprised when you tell her that.
No, that's a thing. But I just thought, no, don't say it. It must be so cliched. Everyone must say it. But I couldn't resist.
Nick, you got something to add, mate?
Oh, me? Yes, no, yes, no, not seriously. Well, I came across a YouTube channel. He also a Dutch guy, and he calls himself Politiek Man. And he has some pretty well researched videos. He has a lot of things about to say. Also, there was one video specifically where he talked about radicalizing and extremism. He made some valid points and took some original angles, and I think maybe we have to look up together. But I think it would be interesting to have him once on the show. But that's up to you.
No, sure. If you want to invite him, we can.
And specifically this video where he talks about extremism and radicalizing, he took an example of Islamism, but it can be applied to all kinds of radicalization. So I think it would be interesting.
Well, we can invite him, surely.
I will talk to him.
Yeah, sure. I will try to put the links to all your channels, and I will try to put the link to Lana Alicia's channel. And I like to thank everyone in the chat, Square Peg, Crusader, Marcel, obviously, the first one that was there. And I don't see a lot of other people anymore. I think everyone left.
A few have left, yeah.
Well, we did have a good talk, 3 a.m. Thank you for coming. I do hope, I'm not sure if American Eirik is still here because he came because of Elicia, and Elicia left, so maybe he left too. I do hope all of you guys had a good time listening in, and I hope to see you all, well, obviously, next time.